Why the crab has no head?
A very long time ago, before man came along to upset the natural balance, all animals lived together peacefully. But in those days, none of the animals had head of their own, except the elephant who was the king of the animals. He had a large collection of heads in all shapes and sizes, which he kept stored in a large cave.
Every time an animal wished to leave the village compound to go out into the field or the bush, he would go to the elephant first and ask to borrow a head. On his return to the animal village, the head would be returned to the king's store. This worked very well for a time.
The only problem was that there were not quite enough heads for all the animals. There always needed to be one short, so at least one of the animals always had to stay behind in the village.
Eventually, some of the animals became dissatisfied that every time they wanted to go out, they had to waste time to collect a head and then return it again. The king agreed to have a meeting, and it was decided that each animal should be given its own head to keep for all time.
The king started making all the arrangements, assisted by his secretary, the crab. And when all was ready and all the heads were lined up in the village square, he set out the crocodile who had given a head for his purpose, to announce that all animals should come to the square so that the king could give them a head.
The cockerel went round the whole of the village, and everybody who heard the message rushed to the square. When he thought he had informed everybody, and was just making his way back to the square, the cockerel spotted the crab, without his head, meandering down a track on his way to the river bank.
The cockerel advised him to make his way back to the square quickly, but Crab just stronged. I am the secretary of the king, he said. The king will keep at head for me. I am sure for it. I need to have a quick bath. I will see you by and by. And he sauntered on his way.
At the village square, where all the other animals had gathered, the elephant started giving out head. He tried to make sure that each animal received a head that suited it. So the hippopotamus got a very large, fat head. The rhinoceros got a head with fierce-looking eyes. The giraffe got a long head to go with his long neck.
Nobody liked the hyena very much, so he got the ugliest head there was. But the antelope, who all thought that's the most graceful of the animals, got the most beautiful head.
This went on all morning until all the animals had their own head, just as the king thanked the cockerel for his work, and was about to return to his palace, the crab came sauntering back. "Where have you been hiding out?" asked the king, and afraid all the heads had been given out, and there isn't a single one left for you.
However much the crab protested, there was nothing to be done, and that is the reason why to this day the crab goes through life without a head.
Once upon a time, in the distant past, there was a great war between the animals who lived in the sky and those that live on the ground. Nobody now remembers how the war started or what it was about, but it was a terrible time.
Many animals of both sides were wounded or killed, and eventually somebody said that if they carry on like this, there will be no animals left on the earth. So, some of the sky animals and some of the ground animals had a meeting, and as nobody could recall what they were fighting each other for, it was agreed that a truce should be called and peace declared.
For the sky dwellers, the heron was appointed to make the announcements, and for the ground animals, the hare would do this job, as he was able to get around the area very quickly. This was done the next morning, but as all animals settled down, realizing they could now live in peace and rebel, there lay somebody from the body of Mr. Bat.
He was the last victim of the war, and must have been killed late the previous day. All the flying animals were very upset, and they decided to organize a big burial for their friend. But as they were preparing his body for the funeral, one of the birds noticed that Mr. Bat had teeth in his mouth.
How was that possible? Flying animals don't have teeth. They called a meeting and they agreed that bat can't be one of them, as no other bird has teeth in this month. So they took bat body to the ground animals and told them that as Mr. Bat was not a bird, it was their responsibility to give him a decent burial.
The ground animals agreed to accept the body, but then, as they were preparing for the burial, one of them shouted, "Wait a minute, this bat may have teeth, but he definitely also has wings. How can he be one of us if he has wings?"
So now the ground animal had a meeting to consider the problem, and they decided that no ground animal can have wings, so therefore Mr. Bat can be referred as one of them, so they too refused to bury Mr. Bat.
Poor Mr. Bat! The flying animals refuse to accept him because he has teeth, and the ground animals refuse to accept him because he has wings. And that is why the bat is still flying around every night.